just all students are welcome.
Yeah.
In our department.
Okay, I guess we're gonna start.
Sorry about that. Everyone's welcome.
Okay, first welcome and also welcome everyone online. We're gonna start our MSc series of a seminar. So this is the first one. So it's kind of important we do it in person. So in the future we may do more online. Kris Puthucode will be a perfect person to lead this. He has a lot of experience in software engineering, system quality, recently, particularly in cybersecurity. She's involved in developing, the DoD's cybersecurity model. She's also one of the very few assessor for that. She had a lot of experience and also in DOE, right, SEI, and which all have been working very hard in cybersecurity. Software engineering, obviously, one of the important things we try to do and try to learn what's new, the recent development. Integrating cybersecurity with software development obviously become more and more important. Thank you very much. And also, we are very grateful for Dovina. I know she's very busy, and thank you so much for take time to give a welcome remark. So we make this official. Thank you.
Hello everyone, probably you remember me from the welcome. Kris is our first seminar presenter. We are very grateful that he was able to travel from Phoenix.
Except for this time.
Yeah, from Phoenix for this time. Phoenix is a growing city, so if you are looking for jobs, I warmly recommend if you can stand the temperature. We would like to have more seminars. We would like to have more exposure to the industry because the software engineering is fastly changing and you need to keep up with the technology in order to be able to have competitive jobs and to get competitive internships. Please do not forget to apply for internships if you don't have currently a job. Do not wait until you graduate. Sometimes it takes almost a year to get one, so sooner you start. Whenever you have a presenter, ask the presenter, in this case Kris, whether they have any opportunities at the company. Even if you are happy with your job, you never know whether you cannot find a more interesting job. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, everyone.
Someone has a microphone on here.
Okay, good afternoon. And those who are online and here with the pizza party, where's the pizza?
Yes, right there.
Okay, there. So that's good. So welcome. My name is Kris Puthucode, like Dr. Kong introduced me, and Doina as well. Thank you so much for inviting me. So I represent a company called Software Quality Center, or SQC. It's been about 27 years now that we've had the organization that I set up. I am a software engineer by academics long time ago with Dr. Kong and I probably went to school almost similar times. And then since 1990s, I've been a software engineer. So I was a software engineer back in the COBOL days and the Fortran days. If you remember those. We don't know what that is now.
Punch cards too?
What's that?
Did you have punch cards?
Yes, we had my dad was a punch card operator, what we would call PCO. He used to work for International Data Machines, IBM, not IBM.
How about tapes?
It is IBM, yeah, punch card operator. And then he used to bring computers in, and that's how I got interested in it.
Right.
So I became a software engineer. Then I went to Stanford for my master's in management and stuff. I used to work for a lot of defense organizations back in the East Coast, and then moved to Phoenix. Because if you're in the East Coast for too long, you feel too cold after some time. So if you see a warmer place during the winter, then you're sold, pretty much. That's what happened. So the company I run is called Software Quality Center. We have operations in here in US, of course, in India as well. And we do the same kind of things for companies in India. We are a business to business. So our customers are in the government sector, defense organizations, and other commercial organizations in different industries. Most of them are large software developers, integrators, or they are developing stuff for the defense or the government, right? So that's what I do. I'm also, like Dr. Kong said, a cybersecurity assessor for the Department of Defense. So if you know, I mean, I saw there's a cybersecurity research and development wing, and there's a concentration in Fullerton here, which is really nice to see, right? I don't know how many of you are going to specialize in it, or how many are already specializing in anything cybersecurity right now, part of your master's curriculum, or considering it, or maybe you just want to learn about it. But whatever it is, this is already there, right? The next big thing that is happening is AI, but I'll come to you in a minute. But then cybersecurity is already there. It's already something that's matured pretty much, right? When companies, whether small, big, or governments or educational institutions, the rate of using these cybersecurity practices is what is lagging behind, right? So the industry's already gone to a place when there are good controls. We know what to do. That's already been there for quite some time. So it's a mature industry. So if you're trying to get into it, if you're trying to see if I have to take something on cybersecurity, if you have an engineering inclination, and if you're engineering, part of engineering school, then you have to have some sort of cybersecurity experience. That's kind of a given in today's environment. Now, is it okay if I take questions at the end? Or you want?
Whatever you want.
Well, go ahead. What's your question?
How likely will AI replace cybersecurity?
AI will enable cybersecurity because we have a lot of AI that we can put to good use to automatically detect threats, for example, to detect where your next vulnerability is going to come from, right? In a network, let's say, or in a website, or on a shopping website which you are shopping too often. They already employ a lot of AI tools. Most of the cybersecurity intelligence tools and control tools incorporate some sort of machine learning, some sort of learning algorithms already, right? So it will enable it, it's not going to really replace it, because that's what is driving a lot of automation in cybersecurity. Okay, so let's go ahead. So anyway, that's kind of my credentials. I have 2 slides over there. One of the things I'm going to talk about today, I thought I will give you a little bit of how many of you heard of cybersecurity controls? Have you heard of the word cybersecurity controls? Yeah?
I've heard of it though, but I'm not more familiar with it.
How about some of the others in the
Like
room?
cryptography, encryption.
Yes, a control is something that you implement to protect incoming traffic or outgoing traffic or anything that's connecting to the cyberspace or through the 2 machines that are talking to each other, right? So what you want to put a control is you get one-time passcodes. You remember one-time passcodes? You get a passcode on your phone many times, or an authenticator. That's an example of one single control you put in place to make sure that you are the genuine person, that it is authenticating, to make sure you are the right person to get access into it. That is by something that you have with you, which is your phone or a device on which you get a code, right? Many times you see Face ID, right? Recognition of Face ID or thumbprints. That is what you are, right? So we say what you are, what you have, what you know. What you know could be that secret answers. Remember, in many times we are asked to set up your secret answer. Who was your high school boyfriend or girlfriend, right? What was your favorite animal? What is your favorite color? Things that only you would know, right? So what you know, what you have, what you are. These are the 3 things that you, so those are controls. This is just one control that most companies are trying to implement this now, right? We have to authenticate you in some way because we don't want, so that's an example of one control. There are many, many controls. So in the industry, these controls are established as standards, as we call them. These are called maturity models or standards. So I'm going to talk about that. Dr. Kong and I are certified assessors for several of these standards. Okay, and I'm a cybersecurity assessor. Dr. Kong is an assessor for software development, for software services, and so many other things related to the software industry for the last 30 years. So he's also knowing what it is. But that's, most of these standards came from Carnegie Mellon University. You remember Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, right? Very famous for computer science and robotics and artificial intelligence. Most of these are coming from a research and development organization within CMU. It is called Software Engineering Institute. Okay, so if you just Google it, you'll be able to find Software Engineering Institute, SEI.cmu.edu. So they have been one of the largest R&D money that goes into cybersecurity, CERT. They run the nation's cybersecurity agency. So any major attack happens, right, or major compromise happens on any infrastructure, the SEI CERT team is the one that will actually go in and investigate and find out and recommend. And so they also bring out new standards. So all of these stem from the SEI. Okay, so they come from SEI in Carnegie Mellon University. Then they have been commercialized. Commercialized means somebody else runs it, right? Many things the SEI still runs, the Carnegie Mellon still runs them as a commercial model. Companies can use it, universities can use it, organizations can use it, and then they will go and implement these things. So cybersecurity also came from that, and also from Johns Hopkins API, Johns Hopkins University, you probably know, in Maryland, right? They have applied physics lab or API. So they and the CMU together did what we call the cybersecurity maturity model certification now. And that is for defense only for now. Okay, so not for, but a lot of universities are getting affected by having to implement those controls. And the reason is because they get government funding. So anywhere defense and government, you have to implement those controls. So they're bringing a policy change at the government level, saying that you have to implement these minimum things, right? Like the one-time passcode authentication example, right? So that's what I do. So I am what we call a certified CMMC assessor. I'm also an assessor for other maturity models, which came much, much before the cybersecurity model. Because cybersecurity is something, the model is something new. It's been there for 3.5 years now. So I want to just talk about some of these best practices that you guys can implement as day-to-day, everyday people like all of us, right? We can implement some of these. Where did they come from? And what are the most important cybersecurity controls that we can all implement? What was the origins of these controls, as we say, or practices? That's what I'm going to talk today. There have been a lot of best practice models. The CERT, I told you about the CERT, right? So that is an SEI. They came out with a model called Resilience Management Standard or model. They have a bunch of practices and controls, and all of that is also very good. It's still going very good. The major one that took over in the recent 7 to 8 years is what we call the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or the NIST 800. So NIST is also a government body, and they make standards for lots of things, and more recently for cybersecurity. There's been a lot of focus on cybersecurity. So if you hear the word NIST 800, 171 revision 2, that's where all the basic cybersecurity controls are, some of it which Fullerton Cal State is also doing. A lot of the universities are applying these same controls. The same thing is now called cybersecurity maturity model certification. Okay, so I'm just going to share that because that is the most comprehensive set of controls that is available now. Then the Department of Energy, DOE stands for Department of Energy. They had their own maturity model. Energy is what? They developed it for power grids, right? Remember, power grids is what supplies electricity, like PG&E. They just supply electricity, then their power, companies that actually generate the power. PG&E brings it to us, right? So like that, we have energy grid maturity model because we don't want energy grids to be attacked. Recently, there was an attack on the water supply, one of the water supply things. Have you heard of that? It was very recent, right? So there's a lot of now analysis and investigation going on why this happened, how did it happen, right? Somebody gave a weak password, or they didn't have this authentication, or they didn't have simple things. So there are all people blaming different controls were not there, but there's going to be an investigation why that happened. So most of that is all covered now in that NIST standard. It's been there since a few years. In 2020, they released the next version of it, revision 3. There's also revision 3 that has come out. Right now we have revision 1 and revision 2. So what we are going to do is, it's a big area. So Carnegie Mellon, I have put the link over there, sei.cmu.edu. There's a lot of papers there. You guys can go download papers, read about them. NIST is also available freely. And CMMI Institute, or ISACA, Information Security Audit and Control Institution. These are the 3 top sources for cybersecurity. If you want to take any cybersecurity certifications, you can go to isaca.org. They have lots of good cybersecurity certifications we can all take. Certified Information Security Auditor, that's been there for, close to 40, 50 years now. They run lots of security certifications we can take. Right. Any other security certifications you guys have heard of? Yes.
CompTIA, CIS, Security Plus, A Plus, like CIS, CYSA.
Yeah, all those things. And many of them are, ISACA runs many of those things. Okay, so isaca.org, you have to take an exam, you have to prepare for classes, take classes, get certified, there's hands-on in many of them. So those are the 3 things. So I want to tell you what cybersecurity is all about. It's part of information security. Okay, so information security includes basically all types of information we have to protect. Some of it may be in papers and in documents and files and folders, right? Physical stuff. Some of it personnel, the right people accessing the right places. You have ID cards, you have biometrics now, you have face recognition now. The right people have to get access to the right facilities and so on, right? So ID cards to everything to biometrics now. Operational security, contingency planning, physical security, that is your physical location, locks and keys and doors and all kinds of forms of that, right? And then you have privacy. Privacy is data. Privacy is you protect critical data that is university data, right? Do you think social security numbers should be kept private? Of course, right? Health records, medical records, all those are supposed to have certain level of protections and privacy that we have. So data protection is there. So cyber is one part of it. It's not the whole thing, but it is a whole area in itself. You can get a PhD in it. You can, establish a career in it if you want. So what cybersecurity refers to is when information is transmitted between 2 computers, 2 machines, 2 devices, or something is vulnerable when something is transmitted over cyberspace, very simply, right? That is cybersecurity, right? So we have a bunch of things, or what are the minimum things required in cybersecurity? How do we put these controls in place? Why this became important? Because we are advancing a lot in making things easier for people. Half of our days we are spending on our phones and smart devices. Isn't that true? Right. More than half of our days, right? Probably if you're calling yourself a 14-hour-a-day person or 16-hour-a-day person, I bet about 8 hours is online, right? In some way, looking at your phone. It's getting to 4 hours, 6 hours. I set a target of 4 hours myself, but I exceed it all the time. That's not a good target at all. I mean, I want to reduce it even more, but it gets to every week I get this report saying you spent 6 hours on this device. Come on, are you crazy? Like you exceeded it 15% from last time. But things are getting, our appetite for technology is getting ahead and even more ahead. We want to do things banking. We want to do and I do a lot of productive stuff on my phone. Most of my email, most of my banking, pretty much everything happens on my phone. A lot of people use it for those purposes, right? So our appetite for advanced technology is why we need this, because then the vulnerability increases that we lose some information and somebody else could get it that should not be getting it, right? That is why this whole area became important. For standards and what is minimum set of controls that you need. And you recently saw that, we've had attacks on power grids, we've had attacks on water supply companies, we've had attacks on lots and lots of things, right? Have you guys heard of any recent attacks other than these 2?
Well, didn't the Iranian hackers try to break into Donald Trump's campaign account?
That's one example. What else? Any other big Microsoft related ones or Apple related ones?
Wasn't there like a hospital data breach?
Hospital data breach. Have you heard of, your credit agencies like Equifax? There was a data breach. AT&T had a data breach. All these days, it's even more frequent. T-Mobile had one recently. So chances are it is not a question of if, it's the question of when you know that your data is already gone. Okay? Pretty much everyone's data is out there somewhere. It's just a matter of when somebody says that it is already out there. So there is this concept of incident response now. So recently, the president took action on executive reporting. Like big organizations, big companies, if they face data breaches, they don't even report it for months together and years together. Why? And guess why? Because one, either they don't know it, because nobody detected that somebody else got into our network and got all the data out. So one, they don't know it. Secondly, if they know it, they're worried about lawsuits, right? You have to pay up a lot. So they either delay it or they just don't know. But some way, we become vulnerable because it's quite fragile. And there used to be this thing that's, cybersecurity is really a software development problem, right? Because we're not developing secure software. And that is where the vulnerability comes from. It's not really a cybersecurity problem. It's really a software development problem, right? And if you develop secure software, we didn't know how to do it for a long time. For 20 years, 30 years, we didn't know what is secure software. How should I build it in a way that, we didn't know that we have this kind of lock and key system in this door is probably not the best, right? Until we got to a place when new technology came in and we said, well, we need better systems than that, right? So innovation has its own pace. The time when we realize that we need those products also takes time. And that's why we become more and more vulnerable, as we say. Natural disasters are there, structural failures are there, cyber attacks happen all the time, human errors happen all the time. How many times have you given a password which you think was not great? A lot of times, right?
Every day.
So now we have password security minimums, right? Many websites tell you have to have 10 digits and you have to have a special character, like Disney or Mickey or whatever, right? You have to have a special character. The special character cannot be a $sign, cannot be an @ symbol, right? We have those minimum 8 characters. Some of them say 16, some of them say 20, right? You cannot reuse your previous passwords, okay? If you ask the government, the strictest of the DoD is you cannot reuse 45 of your previous passwords. Can you do that? Or 14 at a minimum, right? So what do you come up with? So now we have password managers that actually automatically generate passwords for you, right? And so you remember just one master password and then, keep that strong enough so then you can have. So that's just one control. Password control is just one control, requiring people to change passwords every now and often. It's annoying for all of us to do that. Right? When you see that, oh, your password is going to expire. Some of them, believe it or not, are every week, every 15 days. And, if you work with some of the defense people, every 10 days I have to change password on something. So it's so annoying. And I cannot use any of my past 4 or 5, 6 passwords. So it becomes, otherwise it will just lock me out. So there are some very strict controls you can put. Sometimes you can say admin is the username and admin is the password. Right? How cool is that? Right? So this is why certain human errors, right? Wrong passwords or clicking a link that you should not have clicked, right? Or impersonating somebody, right? Spoofing somebody. All these are why the most complicated or the most big data breaches happen because of the tiniest of the problems, of the errors. That somebody clicked on something they shouldn't have clicked on. Okay? Somebody thought they're going to get 5 million from their Nigerian uncle. Where we got the email saying that I'm from Nigeria and I got so much money and my uncle died and I'm going to give you the money. You still get that? So things do happen. So here are some examples, guys, for you in terms of how much money. There's a lot of reports that come out on how much damage has happened, how much money has been lost. And also, there's one interesting study 10 years ago which said people in companies bother about cybersecurity in board meetings and stuff. Investors bother about it. You as individuals bother about it, but who's going to really view it and start implementing these things on our own, right? Within companies also. They don't view it as a strategic priority. So what is happening now? Government has brought policies to regulate it, to force it, to force companies to do it, to force large and small companies. At least in defense, we have the cybersecurity model now, right? So that's what happened, right? So what do we need to protect? We don't need to protect every bit of information, right? I mean, this brochure which advertises this seminar today is not that sensitive. It can go around and that's fine, right? Now, if you talk about the something else which is more confidential and sensitive, you have to protect certain types of information. So all these cybersecurity models have a sensitivity level that you determine where you apply these cybersecurity controls on. Okay. So only confidential, sensitive information, government missions, businesses, universities, most of them they started obviously here, and then across the world you see this is taking effect now. Canada is doing something similar, right? Europe is doing something similar. The UK is doing something similar. Many of the countries are coming up with their own cybersecurity controls. They're saying we have to have a cybersecurity agency, a CERT agency, incident response agency, and so on and so forth. Okay, and also if you're, universities, if you're state government, if you're subcontractors or government contract colleges, universities, you all have. Do you have password change requirements for your Fullerton.edu?
We have to change them I'd say every 1 year.
Okay, good. So we already saw Dr.
just
Khan
change
was logging in and he had to get a phone authentication code. So some things are already in place, right? Your IT team is probably doing that a lot, right? Are they already protecting everything? Probably not, but they are getting there. So where all these controls come from is all the NIST standards, right? So yeah, I mean it will catch up because otherwise government will make a policy for that, right? That's what they're doing. They're trying to regulate everything. Why is there in many documents you see? Do you see things like this for for official use only, right? FOUO, right? Or confidential at the bottom or sensitive at the bottom. The problem is everyone was giving their own mechanisms of categorizing these things. There was no one accepted way of saying what is confidential, what is secret, what is sensitive information, what is for official use. So there's thousands and thousands of these kind of markings, right? If I want to create a document and I want to say it's confidential, I might put sensitive and confidential. You might just say, all rights reserved. Do not forward this to anyone, right? So there was thousands and thousands of markings. So who's going to make them consistent, right? Everyone invented their own way. So we wanted one standard way. Over 100 different ways of categorizing this confidential information existed. Even today it exists, right? So that is why we wanted a common definition. Legal documents, right? Government documents, social security numbers, or educational records, medical records. All of them have certain classification for them, and depends on the classification as to who will get access to it. So at least what the government wanted to do, the defense and government wanted to do, is they wanted to standardize all this. It's still not done. It's still, every agency, every university, everything, they have their own ways of naming things, right? What do you guys call it here in the university? You write confidential at the bottom, you create something? Or do you say, it's I don't care? Or sometimes you may have public information you might want to share. Sometimes you may put a little sensitive thing in there. If you're producing this for the university, they may ask you to follow a certain standard, right? Formats. So this is why the whole idea came that at least we should start standardizing things. So CERT, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and then you have now the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC. And then we have all these maturity models, which are, C2, M2 is another cybersecurity maturity model. All of them have same kind of organization. Most of them take stuff from the NIST standard, or they take it from the CERT RMM standard. So we've got basic controls established now. There are over 110 mostly accepted controls in place, okay, in the NIST standards, 110 plus, let's say close to 150. Those are the minimum set of things that organizations should do, companies should do, universities should follow. And out of that, like I mentioned, password changes, requiring authentication, all those things are individual controls. There's like 110 different things you have to do. And passwords and stuff is just one thing, right? Authentication, it's called identifying and authenticating, right? And there's a bunch of practices in there. So these are called cybersecurity best practices. I told you about Carnegie Mellon University. Do look at them. They are the largest research program and in Carnegie Mellon. That's their office building on the right. It's in Pittsburgh. It's focused on internet security, secure systems, operational resilience. They do a lot of online classes. So if you guys want to take something in addition to what you're doing here, you can take SEI, a lot of videos that you can watch. There's courses that they have on risk management, threat management, vulnerability. I think they have insider threat. They have lots of other things, right? So they built a model called resilience management model. Okay, so resilience management is, what is the definition of resilience? You can see there, which is the property of a material when it can be returned to its original shape. That means there is an attack that has happened on somebody's computer. You try to recover that information, right? Salvage that information as much as you can and try to return it back to a normal working condition. Isn't that what we do, right? Your phone stops working, our computer gets locked and says nothing's working, the website is down. We try to bring it back, right? We try to restore it back. So they built what builds resilience in companies. What are the practices you need? You need incident response. You need to know when an incident has happened. You need to recover. You need to detect. You need to identify. And you need to protect, right? So based on these, they built an entire model of practices called resilience management model. And then the NIST became the main things. So they put all these together as what we call a maturity model. Okay, these are called maturity models. So maturity model means there's a certain basic thing that everyone does. Then you do more advanced things and you progress across 5 maturity levels or 3 maturity levels, whatever your number of levels are. So what these levels mean is a progression of these different practices. So like I said, choosing a complex password, right, is probably something that's a little bit mature, right? It's maybe a level 2 practice, okay? Or choosing a password in the first place is basic practice. You get that? Then requiring you to change your password every so often is probably something more advanced. Then requiring a certain number of characters in your password is another advanced control. So they will have different maturity levels in how even a small control can progress. Okay, so they organize these into usually maturity levels. Maturity level represents a bunch of practices. You do basic things first, and you do better things, and you do better things, and then you improve those things over a period of time, and you're prepared better. It's kind of like building your house and trying to make it more, protected and put more mechanisms in place and toward all, put the walls and hire the security guards and put, take all your ammunition, whatever you need, protect yourself, your property. And same thing with cyberspace, right? Everything is cybersecurity, information security. We need certain level of data protection. All those practices are organized into usually 5 levels or 3 levels. Now, the cybersecurity maturity model has 3 levels in it, 1, 2, 3. So 1 is basic, 2 is advanced, progressive is 3, right? Or advanced is 3, as we say. So here, usually these are all defined. Have you heard of ISO certifications? ISO 9001 certification, they're similar. They don't have all these levels, but they have a singular, like you get a certification to say that you're passed, you're compliant with many things. So most of these originated, all of these originate, typically you can tie them back to Carnegie Mellon and SEI. And Dr. Kong and I have a long history of working with and getting certified by all these models that the SEI brought from a long time ago. So let's see the RMM first. Resilience management focuses on building resilience on these 5 things. We want to build resilience due to external events. So what can you do for hurricanes? What can you do for earthquakes? What can you do to make sure physical facilities are protected, right? So what do we do? Can you think of an example? How do we build homes here? Typically, they're earthquake resistant, or there's some amount of protection already built in, right? In Japan, for example, they get lots of quakes, right? So their homes are built to withstand quakes, that they keep swaying. Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna tie on to the Japan thing. I've been there, and my friends told me that for the earthquake-prone areas, the street lights are buried way, way, way further down, so they don't destroy more property if they were to fall.
They keep swaying and then.
They just keep swaying instead of falling over.
So that's pretty common there. Imagine all of us right now would be like this. And it's normal, nobody panics. So you build some to code, you have fire resistant, buildings and materials you can use. You can keep fire extinguishers. Obviously, that's at least the minimum level of protection, right? So similarly, they build external event resilience, failed internal processes. Internal process means somebody didn't check something, right? And therefore, somebody didn't enforce a password, somebody didn't check for something.
Over in Florida, they recently had a bunch of hurricanes, and I saw that the houses were put up basically on stilts.
Yeah.
And my mom basically took a motorcycle vacation riding around the United States and rode through there, and she said that standard practice is to see house on stilts for hurricanes as everything washes away.
Exactly. So as these calamities are becoming even more pronounced these days, they're becoming more severe. As day progresses, as today's age, and things happen. So we are trying to get ahead and trying to build things that can resist things, right? That can be built more to code. So external events, something that we can never do enough, but we are at least trying to catch up as much as we can. Right.
So Kris, I guess RMM integrated both safety and security
Safety
together.
and security, yeah. So both of it. So it had the safety concept in it, systems and technology failures, and actions of people. Actions of people, I think we have given plenty examples of someone is deliberately trying to, give access to someone else, or you were just, there's this insider threat concept. Do you know about insider threat? So insider threat is what? Yes.
Is like some kind of threat that nobody knows about though, and like they could like potentially be exposing to like third parties.
Yeah, it could be intentional. Insider threats are usually intentional or accidental, as you say, incident. So intentional means somebody is colluding with somebody to get the data out because they're just unhappy with certain things or whatever it is. So those are insider threats. Or somebody just accidentally didn't know that they had to, secure this data or this was confidential data. They didn't know it. So it's more of awareness and training that somebody had to train them that don't share this to someone else, right? So that is insider threat. So actions of people can be both intentional, accidental, just because they don't know. So this model takes into consideration these 4 things because we want to build some operational resistance. We want to build some resistance to external problems, external events, safety considerations. All these are what we call operational resilience. And therefore, we have business continuity disaster recovery, BCDR we call it, or BCP. And it just defines maturity, just like, level 1, level 2, bunches of practices are there. The whole bunch of practices are there. It improves confidence in how a company can respond in time to operational stress. Okay, so it's a super set of things you can do. It's a lot of things. So there are a lot of standards that it has taken aspects from. So there's some ISO certifications, and BS is British standards. So the UK has their own standards. There's COBIT, which is control objectives for information technology. So totally they have 26 areas, which they said you will have to put these controls on. Some of them could be physical security, training requirements. You basically train people. You will take care of threat management. You will take care of incidents, right? Those kind of things. So the 26 areas they have. And within these areas, we had something called practices. So you see the word practices there? Generic practices, specific practices. So practices are the real controls you have to implement, like force password changes and enable multi-factor authentication. Make sure, access is prevented to university systems from a personal laptop. You try to log in from a personal laptop, it should be denied, right? You cannot access it unless it is a machine that is authorized to be within this network, right? So you can put all those controls in place, and those are called practices. The same thing you will find, controls or practices, they're the same thing. So we had so many 26 areas there. You can read some of the names of those areas. Like we have identity management, right? We have incident management. Incident management is a breach happens, somebody broke in, what do we do now, right? You have to have a way to respond, recover, go to the cops, whatever it is, right? Resilience, service continuity. You can see compliance, human resource management, training and awareness, risk management, monitoring, so many areas that you have that covers everything. Most of the controls you find there are under those operational management stuff. Asset definition. What do you think by asset definition? I just have to define what my assets are, right? That means how many computers I have, how many phones I have, right? Do we have an inventory of this? Do you even know how many devices you have in your homes? 5 or 6 or 7 or 8? 20? Maybe 20, maybe 25, right? I have these old phones, by the way, they have a lot of data in them, right? But I never turn it on. But if you lose it and you're thinking, right? So asset management is just that we just know the count of things, we know the identity of things, right? So things like that. So there are 250 something practices in this particular standard, 26 areas. Now we have the NIST standard. In the NIST, it's very similar. They have 5 different angles to this. Identify your assets, protect them, detect events and breaches, respond to them, and try to recover from them. So they have a bunch of things towards all of these 5 aspects. So towards that, the NIST defined things for government control, what we call controlled unclassified information. They have a separate set of categories of information that they have to protect for controlled unclassified. Classified is secret data, right? Secret stuff in the government that only cleared individuals will have access to. But the uncontrolled information, what lies around in your computer, my machine, your phones, all that's a lot of what we call controlled but unclassified. That means we don't know how to categorize it. Is it good? Can it do any harm if somebody else gets it? It's kind of like saying somebody got my photos and created another fake, Instagram profile, which looks like the person like me and a different handle, right? And then all of a sudden we said, your friend is also using another Instagram account, follow that, right? And then your friend says, well, no, this is not my account, right? So that's kind of like if information goes or leaves your device inadvertently, can someone misuse it? Depending on that, you determine whether it has to be classified, unclassified, it has to be protected or not. So we created some controls. Just like that had 26 areas, this has 14 different areas, right? This has awareness, audit accountability, access control, incident response. Each one of them has a lot of practices. There's 14 different families, as we say, or 14 different domains, security assessments. Security assessment would be somebody doing a check to make sure these practices are in place. the right people are getting into the right meetings and so on, in the right meeting rooms and so on, right? Just like Dorina was asking, are you a MSc student, or are you wanting to learn about this? Are you in the right forum? So just like that, right? That would be something like a security assessment, checking, making sure that the right people are there, awareness and training, right? There's 14 families. Then we have the energy department, that their own thing called the cybersecurity maturity model. That is for the electric companies, the power grids, and they wanted to implement it on their own. Again, they had their own model, which had, again, different practices. It was a maturity level based model. It had level 1, level 2, level 3, 3 maturity levels and a bunch of practices there. So level 3 means it's very good defined, company-wide policies and procedures and everything is there, right? Level 1 is basic stuff, initial practices, right? It's basic controls. So they had 10 different domains. So you will find lots of, if you read about this or try to take a class, more advanced class about these controls, most of them will come from here. So I just wanted to leave you with that thought that all of these classes, you see, threat identification, access management, identity management, response, third parties, workforce management, people management, you will find a lot of redundancies between the same. Okay. And then we have the cybersecurity model. This is the latest one, just about 3 years old. It's only for defense organizations for now. And US Department of Defense started this, called the cybersecurity maturity model. This has also got 3 levels. Now the CMMI has also got a similar model, complementary, let's say, capability maturity model. That also has 5 levels, and it has cybersecurity controls, level 1, level 2, level 3 practices included there as well. Okay, so the CMMC has 110 plus. So that's kind of the norm now, 110 controls. Look at some examples of controls there. So these are things that all of us can do, right? New employees, new students are assigned unique usernames, right? Always find that you have to choose a username and a password, right? So scheduled tasks are running in the context of a user identified, inventory is there, password has expired, then you're unable to log on to the system. There is backups conducted every Friday afternoon, for example, right? You take backups automatically. That's an example of a control. User attempts to connect a personal tablet to the organization or the university's network, cannot establish a connection. They are all different controls that your IT and cyber team will be putting in place. So if you take some advanced classes like in MSc, you will learn a lot about these things, right? And that's what Dr. Kong can talk to you a little more about. But again, here's things we can all implement, right? We can all at least do better passwords, if not anything else. We can limit our external storage, what you put on USB disk and flash drives, right? You can control what you put there. You can access control. You can put multi-factor authentication, get one-time passcodes, right? Set up that. Now, most websites are insisting on that, right? But some of them don't want to insist it. But I would suggest at least do that as an individual. Keep antivirus protections on your devices. How many of us have antivirus on your mobile phones? Not on your laptops, but on your mobile phones. You should have them on your tablets, right? That is important. The same makers of antivirus have also mobile device versions. So you should try to get that. Keep antivirus protection updated. That is important, right? Install those updates, right? Share cyber threat information with the team. I got this text message. Is it genuine? Ask, your boss or your friends or your colleagues. Did you get this message? Is this genuine? Should I be clicking on this? The general rule is don't click on anything that you don't recognize, right? That's very important these days. Especially these days, I get 5 different political messages every day. Right? We have to defeat this person. We have to not keep that person in office, right? And all of you are more than voting age, I think. So be careful about that. Don't click some of those links. They ask you to chip in $5 and $1 and $10. to help support a candidate, but most of the links are not legitimate, right? So, and I heard many of those are fake these days. They just want you to download something, you automatically click it, you will end up downloading malware on your device. And you don't want that. So social media, what you're posting on social media also cannot be confidential things, right? About companies, about universities, about information. There have been people that have been caught for that, right? That they shared too much of sensitive information, confidential information online. So these are things we can all do, right? So always use antivirus software, set your software to automatically scan emails and flash drives. Avoid using personal email from work computer. Beware of unknown sources. Don't open files or click links from unknown sources. You probably have been given this training already. Allow authorized apps, right? Restrict personally owned devices on work networks. Use standard accounts versus accounts with administrative privileges where possible. So these are all simple controls that we have that everyone can do. So there is a ransomware network set of practices to prevent. So, software development is getting more secure. So that way these cyber threats are prevented in the first place, right? So we are getting to more secure, building secure software. So I think one of the concentrations that, what can you do now? Obviously you get for a certification, think of a certification. If you're already doing MSc, great. If you're not, consider that. Master's programs or undergraduate programs or different certificates, you can do that. Like we all talked about CISA, CISM, or CISSP, you can have all these certifications you can get. Train more on these security controls, how to implement these. If you are interested in cybersecurity as a career, it pays a lot, for sure, right? It's pretty attractive. That's about it. Any questions I can take from anyone online? If they're still around, any questions I can take or any other thoughts before I let Dr. Kong to close out?
Yeah, we have about 11 people online, right? See if anyone online got any question. Oh, someone raised their hand.
Yeah, Samyan, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, or can you put it in the chat, please?
Yeah, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, guys. Thank you for the talk. I just wanted to ask, in terms of certifications like the CompTIA, how does it compare to the knowledge in an institutional program? Because I'm assuming there's some overlap, and I see a lot of people that get these certifications, they expect to be able to land their career afterwards. So I was just wondering how they compare to each other.
So in the programs, the academic programs that you take, there's a lot of attempt to bridge the gap between what the industry needs and what is being taught in class, right? So there's always a big gap. We're trying to reduce that. Every university is trying to do that. But you do need to get out into the market. You need to get one of these certifications. Or just after you join some place, they will probably sponsor you to get it. So if you ask me, getting these external industry certifications is almost a requirement these days to get a good job. And not only get a good job, you might get a job, but you have to advance and learn what is out there. So some of those things like CISSP and stuff are very hands-on. And that's where you get the hands-on experience. In addition to what you learn academically and get a degree or whatnot, right? So I would suggest always do them, or you will be definitely facing one of those as you build your career. You will have to do it. It's almost imperative you have to do it.
I see. And then as you're going through, say, like the program, cybersecurity program, you could almost say it's as if it's like a supplement to the education itself, or?
Yeah, it's a supplement to the education. It's good if you do it as early as you can while you're progressing through your academics, because most of these certifications do involve the same type of rigor you go through in any academic program. They want you to take classes, they want you to do hands-on projects, show that you can build it and take an exam. So that's how they do it. So it's much better when you're already doing an academic program, do it in parallel, unless you want to go to the industry and then just try to, then they will say, well, go take a certification, because that's where they'll teach you actual hands-on stuff. So I would suggest cybersecurity, you need to have those, in parallel if you can.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Samya. Any other questions from anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
So I'm an undergrad comp sci, and I was interested in the MSc possibly. From what I'm understanding from this lecture, it sounds like the MSc program is cybersecurity driven.
I probably, I can talk about that. Maybe we finish the talk, then I will talk a little bit more about MSc.
Any other questions? And then Dr. Kong can talk about the MSc program. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Kong.
Okay, thank you so much. One of the reasons, I think, personally and for MSc, because MSc, one thing we try to do, because advancement of new technology, so we have to change the way how we build software, what quality means, right? And all that stuff change. And so how we're going to integrate some of the new trend, new technology into the curriculum is one of the challenge. Kris mentioned bridging the gap. Okay, so that's basically the mission of MSc. We try, basically try to bridge what's used in industry, what's important in the industry, and also what we try to teach. It's not easy, right?
Yeah.
It's a challenge, but that's what we try to do. So for this talk, one of the important things is the security or safety. It's just become so important, right? IoT, right? Internet of Things. And now we talk about AI. There's one word you need to know: trust. Do you trust? Do you trust the website? Do you trust basically all this financial transaction? Do you trust this link? Do you trust someone talking from on the side? So there's the issue of trust. No trust, the advancement of this technology will be limited. And when we build software define everything, I love what you said. Cybersecurity problem is a software problem. These days, everything is a software problem. Yeah. Right? And because software define pretty much everything. So I think the importance of this talk is the following. Number one, what are the common threats? Right? What are the common security vulnerability? Where they are coming from? We need to understand, right? Some example, but systematically, can you put into different category? Right? You solve the problem, you have to know the problem. What's the problem? What's the source of the problem? This is number one, right? Number two, how we take care, we solve those problems, right? And there's a lot of best practice, but are you going to learn randomly? So the good thing about the model is we put everything, we have a vehicle, right? So we can define, okay, here are the common problems, different category. Here, as far as we all model are dynamic. Up to date, we know those are effective, proven, effective practice you can use. Right? So you may not need everything. The model is all big, right? 26, whatever. You're not going to use your life. Is probably your circle is different, right? Because the model cover everything. You look at what's my situation. Oh, there are like 5, 8, PA process area related to mine. Okay, I probably want to study. Then I have a place to start. Why this is important for software development? Missing requirement, right? So it's one of the big things in software development, right? You do the delivery. Most of the missing requirements are not functional. Are non-functional. User experience, is it secure? Okay, this has become more and more important. As a software engineer, do you understand, because your customer may not know this, do you know what are the common security related requirements? Want to build a software? People say, I just want this function. I want it fast, How about the secure? Can we resilience? This is a great word. What if something goes wrong? If there's somebody trying to misuse defensive programming, that was the old term. Okay, so it's coming back. So do you understand defend from what? I think that's important. Become a modern software engineer, we need to have a high standard. Not just function, we need to understand the user environment. Okay, so that's why I think it's missing. It's just not a programming anymore. Okay, so I thank you very much. So this I learned a lot. So basically, Kris point to a few model, right? That if you want to learn more, this is a starting point. 1 hour, you're not going to cover everything. But if you're interested, then that's where you can get more information. Okay, thank you. Now for MSc, so this is the MSc seminar. One of the purpose of the MSc seminar is we let more people know about the program. So basically, in MSc, what we try to teach is we try to teach people the right way to build software. How do you build software? And all the different aspects involved in building software, not just coding. And so, building software.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And the MSc, so we, basically put a lot of effort into this because it's a zero-sum game. And it's 30 units, all graduate program, 30 units, right? Which is basically 10 courses. So we put a lot of thinking into what 10 courses we can teach. Okay, so we have a different track. We talk about engineering. We talk about, for example, in terms of requirement, product planning, all the stuff involved. We talk about architecture. So I saw there's a security architecture. So how do I implement all of this stuff? The architecture obviously is very, very important. And then we talk about quality control. How do you verify, validate? How do you make sure what you build is correct? A lot of methodology, right? And we have a management side. We have process side. And so we basically cover, and also we have ethic side. Because software, the responsibility of software engineering today is huge. Okay, because you build something, people are going to use it, define the regulation. Okay, so everything's IT. Okay, so in MSc we try to do all that, and obviously we're not going to change the course every year. So here's how we maintain, make sure it's kind of current. So we basically watch what's going on. Right, so we start MSc officially launched 2004. Okay, I think we got this idea 2002. At the time, for example, Agile just started.
Yeah.
Right, so it's basically wonderful, everything. Okay, now I remember when we get to 2008. Hey, this is a better way in some certain situation, better way to build software. MSc quickly we integrate that into our curriculum. The way we do project management, the way we do development, instead we basically cover Agile and also today Lean approach. And obviously, we still, there's some clear practice, we also do that. And some of you know that DevOps, right? 2011, DevOps, came, that's one of the major change, a new ways how we build software, so basically we integrate development and maintenance operation together. Okay, resolve a lot of bottleneck software development facing in the past. Okay, and then, we made a lot of effort, try to integrate that into the curriculum. So it's zero-sum game. So, all the instructor, the faculty, one of the reasons after a while, a lot of people have to leave because they have to go to classes. Some faculty have to teach the classes, usually start at 1. And so this is what we try to do. Security. Is security driven? No. I'm going to say we are what? The best practice driven. Okay, so this is, I think security is one important component. Okay, so be honest with you. So we have not fully tried to integrate that into our curriculum yet. Maybe, for example, in the requirement class, we could say, what are the common security requirements? Right? What are the technology you're going to design to implement alongside with all those functions? How do you do testing? How do you test? So the security things. So like in verification validation, another class, maybe we need to bring this in. We have for example, we have a class teach process standard. Maybe we should also include some of the security standard. so you would know. Okay, so that's what we do with MSc. Another thing about MSc is, we have a lot of folks, I'm talking about the online MSc. Most of our students, they work full-time, a lot of experience. So this is also a good opportunity for networking and know people, because for your career development, right? And sometimes it's kind of important to know the right person. So many of our alum and also current students, so they work for IT companies in California, in LA, some other place. So I think that's also a good asset. So in MSc, so when we learn, not only you learn from the instructor, but also you learn from each other. So I always believe, because of, this is the software engineers are hands-on, learning by doing. And so I think that's also kind of unique. By the way, I was the first coordinator a long time ago. I'm serving my second time as a coordinator after 20 some years. So I think you should have my email address. So I know if you're interested in the program, you want to learn more, just send me an email. If you need, we can set up a Zoom so we can talk a little more about, or maybe anyone online or here, if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer anything specific dealing with admission, apply for the program, courses, whatever. Okay. And so thank you very much, Kris.
Thank you.
And also thank you, everyone. And so if you guys have any question, please